So it never fails. You get a perfectly made survival shelter, a perfectly made tarp or poncho shelter, and after some time, after your cordage starts to stretch, the next thing you know, your tarp or your poncho is just flapping in the breeze. So I'm going to show you what I feel are the 4 most useful knots and tightening systems for ridge lines and guy lines for survival shelters. Now, regardless of what type of tightening system I choose to use on the other side, I've still got to anchor it securely on the far side or the other side. So there are several different knots I can use on this side. I could basically any anchor knot, but I could use an anchor bowline, I could use a round turn and 2 half hitches. But because I'm going to be tightening this down and putting it under a pretty good load, I want to be able to untie it later. So I'm going to use a figure 8 retrace, and that's some wild blueberries growing there. So to start this knot, I need to make sure I've got enough to go around the anchor point and actually retrace the knot. So I'm going to pull up, probably a good 4.5, maybe 5 feet. I'm going to take my bite that I formed, I'm going to twist it once, twist it twice, and then pull my running end through that loop. That creates my figure 8. I'm going to wrap that around my anchor point. Then I'm simply going to retrace the figure 8 that I made. That's my figure 8 retrace anchor knot on the far side. Alright, so let's take a close look at this taut line hitch. I'm going to take my running in and go around the anchor. What I'm going to do is form a half hitch by making a loop where the running end crosses over the standing end. And then I'm going to push that running end, that working end, up through. And that's going to create my first half hitch. Now, for my second half hitch, I'm going to go around the bottom of the standing end with the working end. And go around the bottom of the standing end. And then rather than coming back through the loop I formed here, I'm going to come back up through the loop that was formed here first. And then I'm going to go through that second loop. So now what I've got is 2 half hitches with a diagonal locking bar. Then, to finish the knot, I'm going to do a third half hitch by bringing the running end, the working end, under the standing end again. And this time I'm just going straight through this loop that half hitch creates. And I'm going to pull it tight. And what that does is it allows me to slide this to tighten up my ridge line when I need to, but then when it's got tension on it, it holds tight. So I can easily adjust the tension on my ridge line or my guy lines. Let's take a look at that again. I take my working end, I come around my anchor point. Now my standing end is on my right hand side and my working end is on my left hand side. I'm going to cross that over the top to form a loop, and I'm going to come up through the loop that I made towards my anchor point, and I'm going to form my first half hitch. Then I'm going to come from underneath. My running end is under my standing end now. I'm going to form a second loop, but before I go through there, I'm going to go through from bottom to top the loop that's around my anchor and then go through. I'm going to pull that tight. That's going to give me my 2 half hitches with the diagonal locking bar. Now I'm going to take the running end, once again come under, forming a loop, and I'm going to make a half hitch by placing the running end back through that loop. and tighten it all down. And all I have to do is slide that knot until my ridge line is nice and tight. If I need to adjust it, I can release that tension. If I need to tighten it, I can tighten it easily and it holds fast. That is the taut line hitch. Let's take a close look at how to start off a trucker's hitch, right? And there's several different variations of a trucker's hitch, and the reason it's so variable is that it basically consists of a slip knot and your running end, right? So the knot that you use to form the slip knot can vary. But the one I see most commonly is an overhand slip. Some people call it a slippery half hitch, but it's really an overhand slip. To take a close look at how to tie this knot, basically all we're going to do is form a loop. And we're not going to take the running end and pass it through. We're going to take the standing end and pass it through to form our slip. So basically now we've got our overhand knot and we've got a slip. And what you want is the overhand knot to slip on the working end. You don't want it the other way around. And all I have to do is take my running end, go around my anchor. Then I'm going to come back through the loop that's formed on that slip. And then we're going to tie 2 half hitches. I'm going to make a loop, come through, tighten that down, make another loop, come through, and tighten that down. Once I've got my half hitches established, all I have to do is put it at the height I want it, pull towards the anchor point, and allow the ropes to slip. And that's going to get my ridge line as tight as I want it to be. If I want to adjust this and loosen it, I can just slide this knot, adjust it to where I need it, and then tighten it again. So that is a trucker's hitch. Alright, for this Prusik tightening system, I want to try to get a good look at how to tie the Prusik. Alright, so we're coming around the anchor point. Of course, my standing end is going off towards my other anchor, and I've got my working end here. So what I want to do is begin my Prusik. When I start it by leaving this as the first tail, and I'm going to make a loop with my running end on top. Then I'm going to wrap from inside to outside, this being the inside going that way. I'm going to make 2 wraps. Then we're going to come around the front to form sort of a half hitch there. Now I'm going to go underneath the standing end, creating a window here, a little loop. Now I'm going to be working and wrapping from outside to in twice. Once, twice. So once I've got that established, I'm going to dress it down. And I want these parallel wraps to stay parallel, and this cross locking bar is what actually locks it. So it's easiest if you milk from the outside in and pull slack on your running end. That is your Prusik knot. You got your running end, your cross locking bar, 4 parallel wraps that don't cross each other anywhere. Now, a Prusik knot works best when the rope that you tie the Prusik in is a smaller diameter than the rope you're actually tying the Prusik on. A 4-wrap Prusik is kind of a minimum Prusik, and it should work for this. But because this is the same diameter, I could put, 6 to 8 parallel wraps in here, and that'll make it hold a lot better. Now, before we tighten this, I want to do some kind of stopper knot. If I had more tail, I could throw a bowline in here, but that's a little more complicated than it needs to be. I could use a figure-8 stopper, but I can just also use a simple overhand. Make a loop, come back through from top to bottom. And that'll keep your Prusik from being pulled out when you tighten it up. But now to tighten it, I've got this cross locking bar, and there's not much tension on it now, so it doesn't really matter. But normally when I want to tighten it, I can use my thumb and I can push down on that locking bar. That takes the tension off these wraps, and I can slide it easily. Get it to where I want it to be. Then all I have to do is make sure to pull up on that locking bar and pull down on the running end, and that'll tighten it right down. And get that a little tighter. And that is another way to establish a ridge line. A variation of the Prusik tightening system. Prusiks are designed for the Prusik to be tied on a rope of smaller diameter than the rope you're actually tying it on, and it actually holds better that way. So a variation that you can do is to use the second piece of cordage and tie a Prusik on one end, on one side of your anchor. Then with your rope on one side, bring your second piece of cordage on the outside and tie another Prusik, so that you end up with a Prusik on both sides of your anchor. Tie me a stopper knot in both of these. Now that I've got my Prusiks established on both sides and I've got my stopper knots in, I make sure they're dressed down and they're nice and tight. I can come to the other side. And all I have to do is pull tight and slide the Prusiks and that also locks down a ridge line. Now, the next one I want to show you isn't as adjustable as the other three, but it's a really secure system. In fact, it's so secure you can also use this same figure-8 transport tightening system to construct a rope bridge for an emergency water crossing. So I generally like to use this one just to keep up that skill. But like I said, it's not as adjustable as the other ones, but it's extremely secure. So what you want to do is, first you got to establish your figure-8 slip knot. So you form a bight, twist it once, twist it twice, and then pull a bight through the top loop of the figure-8. That forms your slip. Now from there, before I run this around, I'm going to make a locking half hitch. So basically I'm just making a window, and I'm going to slide that over that loop. And that makes a locking half hitch. My running end has to go around towards my anchor, and that forms the half hitch, and it locks this down and takes some of the tension off of this. It making it that much easier to untie, especially for something like a rope bridge after you've put several people across it. And then from there, I run this around my anchor point. Now, even with the other hitches, I don't generally like to run rope back through itself and then pull tight on it and pull tension. So this one especially, I like to throw a snap link in there, a carabiner, so that as I'm doing, the friction doesn't, wear away at the nylon, and it makes your rope last that much longer. So I'm going to come around. you can see that half hitch is going to lock off. Coming around the tree, around my anchor, then I'm simply going to drop it in that carabiner. Now you can see what I've got. I've got my figure 8 slip. That slip is locked off with a locking half hitch. It's going around my anchor system, through my carabiner, and now when I pull tension back towards the anchor point, it's going to tighten my ridge line. Then I can simply bend it around the tree, coming around the bottom. I'm going to give it one more wrap. After I've wrapped it around the second time, that's taken pretty much all of the tension off of this. It's not going anywhere. But I need to secure it. And I'm going to secure it using 2 half hitches. One of those is going to be on a quick release. So basically what I've established is a full round turn. That's 2 wraps around the anchor. Make my first window, pull my half hitch through. There's my first half hitch. Make another window. And instead of pulling it completely through, I'm just going to pull a bite through, and that'll give me a quick release. So what I've got now is an extremely secure tightening system with my figure 8 slip locked with a half hitch. It goes around back through my carabiner, and a full round turn and 2 half hitches with a quick release. This is extremely secure, and like I said, this is the same system, this and a variation of the Prusik tightening system that I would use for a rope bridge for emergency water crossings. Extremely secure and fairly easy to untie after you're done. Simply pull the quick release, release tension on that half hitch, and then slowly release the tension on your round turn. And you see that comes apart. Comes out of the carabiner easily. That locking half hitch had taken a lot of tension off of this. So that's easy to untie. And then because this is a figure 8, it's extremely easy to untie. Put the ropes back parallel and push down on that locking bar. And even after all that tension I put on it, the knot comes free easily. All right, so those are 4 different tightening systems that you can use to keep your tarp or your poncho from flapping in the breeze. Hopefully it inspires you to go out and get outside and get in the woods and try some of these for yourself. Thanks for watching.